Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Brave Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Jena Rodriguez, and I'm your transformational mentor and business strategist, helping you grow not only your business, but also your life and your mindset and your self-awareness. And I'm so committed to helping people eradicate the fear that holds them back and step into their life and business powerfully. And this show is all about featuring other amazing people that do the same and really have stepped into their lives in a very powerful, brave way. And so if you like what you're hearing, if you like what you're seeing, please give us a review or give us a comment. Let us know what your thoughts are. And I have another guest that I'd love to introduce to you, and that is Maxwell Ivey. Welcome, Maxwell. How are you?
Doing good. How are you doing today?
Amazing. I'm amazing. And it's just really great to meet you finally and share you with our world here and our Brave Masters community. And so if you give us just a second of intro, what is your business and who is Maxwell?
Okay. My business is helping people gain exposure for their brands or their passions. I do that by connecting them with opportunities to share their stories and reach new audiences by being a guest on podcasts or radio shows, participating in virtual summits, submitting to online magazines, and guest posts on blogs. I do that because there are a lot of people with great stories to share. They're doing amazing work. Right. They either don't have the time, the understanding, or the confidence in what they're doing to do the work, to do the outreach, to do the grunt work that it takes to make the connections.
Right. And so tell us a little more about how you got to be this. Like, what's your story?
Sure. I started off in a family of carnival owners where I did the bookings and operated some kids' games and occasionally helped set up and take down rides when necessary. After my dad's death, the carnival went out of business, so I knew I had to do something different, something to make a living, or at least to help support the family. So I started a business online called the Midway Marketplace, where I help people buy and sell surplus amusement equipment, like the rides, games, and concessions machines, that sort of stuff. And in order to do that, I had to learn a bunch of new things, such as how to hand code HTML, recruit clients, set fees, build an email list, use social media, and much more. People were inspired by my willingness to take on these difficult challenges and do things they didn't like doing. So they asked me to share more, and that led to my starting a second website as The Blind Blogger, where I share my experiences of being a entrepreneur who happens to be blind. And that has led to 3 books so far: traveling the country solo, public speaking, being on over 200 podcasts, and then eventually starting my own show, the What's Your Excuse Show.
Nice. Yeah. And so let's speak about the blind blogger, and more importantly, the blind story. So number one, I don't know this part of you. Is this, are you 100% blind or not?
Well, I have what is called light perception, but to me, I have no functional vision. So to me, blind is just simpler.
Yes.
And it's easier for most people to understand than light perception.
Yeah.
And I haven't always been this way. I was born with perfect vision, started losing my vision at age 4. They didn't know I was losing my vision. They just knew I was falling down and running into things more than the rest of the kids. So they looked into it, found out I had retinitis pigmentosa, or RP. It progressed very slowly until I was in junior high school, and then I had a major drop-off in vision. That was when I started learning to use a white cane, started to learn Braille, started to depend heavily on audiobooks and instead of regular books. It stayed pretty constant until I was in college, and then I had more decreases in my vision to where it is now.
Got it. And I wanted to hear that path and journey because, I mean, number one, look at where you are. Like, wow. I just think you're a testament to nothing can stop you. And I love the fact that your podcast is, what is it called? No excuses?
It's called What's Your Excuse?
What's your excuse?
And I'm trying to learn how to say it right, because earlier this year I spoke at a podcasting conference, and there was a 12-year-old girl there who just started her podcast. And she said, and Mike Ivey, he's the host of What's Your Excuse? And she just said it with that attitude to it. And I've been trying to replicate it, but I just ain't quite got it yet. But yeah, it's and every once in a while, people will throw it back in my face when I tell somebody I don't want to do something. They're like, "No, but
What's
aren't you no excuses guy? Aren't you? What's your excuse?" You know,
Nice.
and some of the things that has applied to. Recently, somebody wanted me to learn a foreign language so I could go to Brazil with them. They wanted me to learn Portuguese. I'm like, I ain't doing it. A few years ago, it was a church talent competition. I said, this is not happening. The four of us just can't get on the same page with the music. And somebody said, well, aren't you what's your excuse guy? Aren't you? So every once in a while, it can be dangerous because you have to get to that point where you go, yeah, I know I could do this, and I know it's going to sound like an excuse, but I've gone from a place where if somebody suggested I do something, it would be, I can't do that. I don't know how. And then it was, that sounds like that might be interesting. I could do that. How would I do it? And now I'm at that point where, okay, that sounds like something that would be fun, but how does it fit into what I'm doing in my life today and right this minute? So
Yes.
there are some things I've had to learn to say no to. And as you know, as a business person, one of the bravest things you have to do is get to the point where you can say no.
Agreed. Yeah. And it's interesting. You're the what's your excuse guy. I'm the brave girl, right?
I didn't even think about that. We have so much in common that way.
I know, which kind of fits in the same bucket. I can get myself in trouble if and certainly people have said, aren't you going to get your brave on? Right back to me. So, we live our brands, right? And I think, and I think that's a powerful anchor. People should live who they are, right? And live their brands.
Yeah.
And I just, love that that's your approach, right? I mean, it's like, being blind, and I think that's what's interesting is like, you can't see the world the same way other people do. And yet you face the world unlike anybody else will. And so.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to steal that. Can you write that down for me somewhere?
It's on the recording.
Okay.
I don't even know what
that's some good stuff there. That's some good marketing stuff. You should make me pay you for that. That was
good.
Okay,
I'll charge you. I'll send you an invoice.
Send me an invoice. All right.
Thank you. I don't know where that came from, but that's what I heard is that, if we can inspire one person to get it, that whatever they're using as their excuses, as their reason why not, or their can't, that, you and me both are here to show others that brave or choice, or, it's okay to say no, but is it no coming from a place of power and a place of freedom to choose, or is it coming from a place of, fear and ego and really, I think it's two different places, right? I think it's.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. And something I want to make sure I address is, I don't know about you, but I'm assuming this is true about you. Neither one of us walked out of the womb being this brave, fearless person.
No.
Over the years, we have had, at least in my life, I've had good friends who have challenged me to do things that were unfamiliar, if not downright scary to me. When I was younger, it was my brother. Later on, it was people that I've met online. I'm blessed to have a great circle of friends online who will call me out, will challenge me, and who will also point out things about me that I am not currently seeing in myself.
Of course.
So we didn't start out being this brave, fearless person. We did small things that were somewhat scary and succeeded, or we failed, but the failure didn't kill us. So we thought, why not try the next scary thing that comes along? So I would encourage people to find something that, is a baby step, scary or brave, or something that you maybe never thought you were capable of. Pick one small piece of it and try that. Because when I started my first website, the first thing I did was to file for a domain name. And because of the fact that this was in 2007, back when there was no WordPress, Wi-Fi, or social media, and the screen readers were very crude at that point. So I had to get my brother to file for my domain name.
Sure.
It was 6 months before we'd have a website, but we filed for the domain name. Okay, we don't know how we're going to build this site. We don't know when the site will go online, but hey, I got to have a site if I'm going to do this thing in this particular way. And so maybe there's something that a person can do that's brave by their standards, not by
Correct.
yours or my standards. And I like to remember to point that out, because I often get emails from people who go, Max, you're so great at putting yourself out there, but I'm not that person. And then I have to remind myself, well, I did cold calling and bookings for a small traveling carnival in Texas for 15 years. So I've pretty much gotten over being told no.
Right. Well, and I think that I agree with you. I think I wasn't born this way. It was one choice after another, and it was one action after another. And I also talk something, and maybe you can relate to this, but there's for me, there's two sides of brave. There's brave by survival and brave by choice. And brave by survival, what it looks like, certainly in the first part of my life, is I was pushed up against a wall a lot in my life, meaning, it's like I either had to jump off the ledge or back up, it's like, because I was in, well, for 5 years after my parents divorced, I was in a domestic violence household. I was in, some pretty scary hardship. So I lived in fear. I lived in a lot of fight or flight. And so brave for me, moving out at 14, for example, was a little bit more, it wasn't easy. There's no easy in this. However, I was in survival mode, and it was called self-preservation. And so I know that, when we are pushed to the limit, I think sometimes we find an ounce of courage and we do something about it. But I think where we predominantly live, because I don't think, there are hardships out there. Clearly, you've had yours, right? Yep. And yet where we live predominantly now is brave by choice. And I think that's the harder one, is because we don't have to say yes to things. We can just keep saying no and keep making excuses and keep shutting them down and just avoid and just stay away. I'm good. I'm comfortable. Right. And then the opportunity, though, is what's on the other side of the brave yes, or the change that you desire, but you're not moving towards it. And I would love to know your thoughts on that, and if you have any experience around that.
Well, I love that you put it that way, because I hadn't really thought about it that way until now. But you're absolutely correct. We have the things we do because we feel we have to, or because we feel we don't have a choice, and the things we do out of choice. One of the things that I personally love is how many people finally went after their passion during the recession of 2006, 2009, when they were forced out of jobs they thought they would have forever. And those jobs were their excuse why they didn't write a book or start a business or maybe start a family or what. Those were their excuses, but they were forced out. And then you have times where you make a decision where you're facing a fear out of choice. In 2016, somebody sent me an email about the Amtrak Writers in Residence competition. They said I should enter it. And I went and looked at their website, and I started looking at the people who had won it in the past. I said, these people are never going to pick me. These other people are way more accomplished than I am.
Thank you, ego.
Yes, exactly. And then I read a blog comment from a woman who said, I wish y'all didn't give these things only to people who are already successful and accomplished, or I would apply. And that just struck me really weird, kind of like a punch in the gut. And I was like, that's just so sad. I don't want to be that person. And so I completed the application. I sent in my writing sample, which I copied from my first book, and I submitted it, and I forgot about it. And 6 months later, they called me in almost the middle of the night and tell me that I won, and they're going to give me a train ticket anywhere in the United States. So that was an example where I did something. I may end up looking silly doing this. Somebody may send me an email going, you had no business. What were you thinking? That sort of a thing. Yeah. And yet I won. And then, of course, after I won, my decision was, okay, do I want to go to San Diego or Phoenix or Jacksonville, somewhere where I've got family, or do I want to go for just a few days and come back? Oh, no, I'm going to go to New York City for 2 weeks.
Nice.
So, yes, there are times when I've made decisions out of fear or out of necessity. And there are times when I've had the option of playing it safe or going for what I really wanted and going for the big dream. And it's not every time. Even people like me and you don't make the decision of bravery every time.
That's right.
But I think we're probably in the 75, 85% area.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. It's very much in my consciousness, right? It's something I'm aware of. So I think that's the key is whether, one, like you talk about excuses and such, is you've got to first know that you're doing it. You got to know what you're doing as that self-awareness that's going to allow you to make new choices, which leads to new transformation and
Yeah.
new results for that matter. And
Yes.
and so yeah, you could have easily said, no, I'm not going to apply. But it's like when we play small, then we don't even open the possibility for something great. And so you just put yourself out there, gave it a shot. What do you have to lose, right? Other than a
Yeah.
no. I mean, like you receive a no and then you win. Like go
I ain't
figure.
scared of no. So,
Yeah, look at you,
uh,
right?
yeah, yeah. And, just one point you said there. My dad used to tell me this all the time when I'd be doing the cold calling, because we had a very small carnival. And in Texas, everybody wants a bigger, better carnival than we had. So I got told no a lot. And
Yeah,
when I would get disgusted and frustrated, he would tell me, if you don't ask, they can't say yes. Now make the next call on your list.
that's right. I love that. Well,
So
if you don't ask, the answer is always no, because you
that's
never opened the door to a possible yes.
that's true. That's true. But
Yeah,
he always tried to phrase things in a more positive
positive.
way. So he's like, yeah, Max, if you don't ask them, if you don't call them, how are we going to know?
Yeah, that's great. And how unique is that you and your family grew up in carnivals? Like that's not even a normal thing. How
Yeah, as my dad used to say two things about carnival. One, he'd say the only people in this business were either born into it or married into it.
right?
And the other thing he would say is, Max, this is the only business I know of where insanity is not a disqualification and in fact maybe a necessity.
I like your dad already.
Yes, he
That's
was a great man who shared a lot of the old-fashioned golden rule type wisdom with me. And I was smart enough to listen to him when he talked. And I was blessed to get to spend who knows how many hours driving up and down the roads with him, trying to get our stuff to the next town and get open.
yeah, right, right. Yeah, he's obviously very motivated and wisdom filled, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
And therefore you are right, and therefore
Yes.
you have
Yeah.
something else to say. So
Yeah.
yeah. So in closing, I know we've just got a few more minutes, but already like
Goes
how
by
great is that?
fast.
I know it goes like a blink. What is it's kind of like how do you overcome fear? Like what's been some of the biggest fears you've had in maybe in the last year or so?
Um, there are people who will tell you that I don't get scared, and
Mhm.
there haven't been a whole lot of times when I have really felt fear. And I tell people sometimes I'm not smart enough to be scared, and some people take that positively, and some people take it negatively. And somebody recently explained to it. They said, Max, I think the thing is when you say that, what you mean is you approach everything with the childlike wonder that it's all an experience, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. The other thing is, over the years, I have failed enough times that I've gotten really good at seeking and finding the positive in every bad experience, because there are lessons to be learned, but there are also people to have been met. And uh, there have been, I say I'm really good at getting back up because I've spent a lot of time on my butt in my lifetime.
Right.
I've failed a lot. I've been wrong a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes,
I
and
get
I'm
it.
going to probably make even more of them. But as far as outright fear, I think that being focused on what you're doing or what you're trying to accomplish, or what some people say, being on mission, is a big part of it.
Yeah.
And I often think that my blindness may be a help in that area, because if you're a visually impaired person, you have to focus so much
Mm.
on the information that's coming to you, whether it be sound, smell, touch. And the old myth about when you lose one sight, the others get better. I don't know that I believe that. What I do believe is that you focus more on your other senses. So, say for example, when a blind person is traveling in a city like New York City, he really doesn't have the energy in his brain to be thinking about being scared. All he can really do is process all the information to try to continue to take that next step in front of him to make it to the bus or the train or the landmark or the restaurant or wherever it is he's going. And so I would say being focused, staying on mission, really getting yourself into what my goal is, what
Right.
steps I need to take to get to that goal, and then focusing on each of those. Because if you have yourself zoned in on what it is you're trying to accomplish, you don't have near as much room for fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we edge it out. And I think you have a point. I think fear is it's natural for us to have fear just because we have an ego that likes to live there.
Oh, yes.
However, when we tip the scale and we live more in our higher selves, or what I call the true north, like we live in that space predominantly, then ego and fear obviously are dismantled, and they're fewer and far between. And I think how we approach fear or doubt or uncertainty or things like that get easier as we, yes, make sure that our other senses and our even our sixth sense, right, our gut,
Yes.
lead us versus and certainly I have a new hashtag called gut and faith, right?
Okay.
And it's like
All right.
following that inner sense, and that inner knowing, and then therefore following it with faith and knowing that it's all going to work out and it's leading us in the right direction. That lowers the fear level, right? Or it eliminates it altogether, per se.
Yeah.
And so I thank you for that. I know that you have come through so much and you've overcome, and like you said, you've fallen down many of times. And I think it's funny because I have a teenager, and I don't know if you have children, but
I don't,
uh,
sadly, but go ahead and tell your story.
yeah, so I just noticed how so much of the time as a parent, we're trying to keep them from falling down, like emotionally, or I mean, yes, physically, certainly when they're little, but like falling down and failing or having a bad day or having a bad experience. And yet it's those rich moments that are actually going to give them the muscle and the brave and the no excuse kind of approach to life. And it's almost like the sooner we can allow them, like just have the allowance, right? Just let them experience it for its fullest glory. Then look at the life that they can lead, right? They will step into their passion and purpose faster. They will be that leader that, makes a podcast and says, there's no excuses, right? And I just want to leave that with people in some way. Like, it's like, let people, have their experiences, but move through them powerfully so that we can show up in life and be brave and stop holding ourselves back. I think that's the gift inside of it. So I don't know if you want to add to that. Please do if you wish.
I would say you're making a lot of sense that we do have to let people make their own mistakes and let them fail. And it's a very hard thing to do, especially as a parent. It's also a hard thing to do as a coach or a mentor, as I'm sure you know,
Correct.
because you see your clients doing things and you've talked to them, you've explained to them how you think they should be running their business or doing something in their own life, say education or whatever.
Right.
And then when they don't do it, you're like, you just want to reach out and snatch them and go, I thought we talked about this, and I thought we agreed that we were going to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Right.
And so I'm sure that happens. In my family, my dad was kind of caught in between, because on the one hand, he was always telling me I could do anything that I set my mind to. He was encouraging me to go out and do things that might get me hurt. But on the other hand, he didn't want to see me get hurt. So sometimes he would be sneaky about it. And one of my favorite examples of this is my brother had a dirt bike and a moped. And a moped doesn't go very fast. So he was fine. Yes. Well, so when he would talk to me, he would be, yeah, Max, it's fine. I'm not worried about you riding the moped. But I would find out from my mom a few years ago after my dad passed away that at night he used to go out and tinker with the moped and the dirt bike so that they wouldn't run. He didn't want to tell me I couldn't do something.
Oh my gosh.
Made him scared of me doing it. So he didn't want to crush me as a person. He didn't want to put this idea in my head that there were things I couldn't do. But as a parent, you want to keep your kids safe. So he just decided to split the difference. And so my brother, Michael, who is a mechanic, he would have to spend a lot of the time that he would have spent riding the bike, or that I would have spent riding the moped, making them run again. And so some days we wouldn't get to ride them at all. And some days we wouldn't get to ride them for 20 or 30 minutes. And so my dad got he got the best of both worlds. He got to keep me safe, and he also got to encourage me to try things that would be scary, if not outright dangerous.
Yeah, got it. That's awesome. That's pretty wise of him.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to try that actually. I think I probably do a little bit of that. Like, okay, here's the limb. You can go out on the limb, and then, but I'm gonna hold the branch in the tree. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. And I second that. I do feel, I feel connected to my clients, and people in general. Like I want this conversation right now that we're having to help somebody and to change them or to elevate them. And yet we have no control over that ultimately.
No, we don't. And we can't even control whether or not they will let us know if we did
Correct.
inspire or encourage them to do something. And, that's one of the things that really, really bothers a lot of bloggers and podcasters is that they don't receive any tangible reinforcement from their audience that they're doing good work. So I would say whether it's this podcast or my blog or somebody you meet in the street, if somebody does something nice for you or somebody does hard work and creates something that you enjoy, and there's a way for you to reach out to them, do it, and do it immediately. Don't just think about it or say, I'm going to send that person an email next week. Go ahead and do it right away, because one, it will make you feel good. And two, it might be the difference between me or you or some other great person quitting because they weren't told that they were doing such great work.
Yeah, and that it was being received well, right?
Yes,
yeah,
received and changing, maybe even changing somebody's life.
Yeah, completely. You're so right. I mean, I've been committed to this show for so many years, and it's sometimes crickets, right? It's sometimes crickets, but then there's this moment where somebody will reach out and go, oh my gosh, I listen to your podcast every day on the way to work or whatever, right? And it's making a difference for them. And then I'm like, okay, great. Now it breathes new air into my lungs. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. Here's something I've started doing. And when I appear on a podcast, I've started encouraging my followers to go leave a review and leave something in the review that lets the host know who they are, so that maybe we can not only get you some positive reinforcement, but maybe create a communication and a new contact instead of just one-way communication.
Yeah, for sure. I love that, and certainly appreciate that of you. So, well, I have totally enjoyed this conversation. You're certainly an inspiration for many. And before we close out, what is a great way for people to connect with you?
Right. They can find me at theblindblogger.net. They can also email me at justask@theblindblogger.net or use the contact form on the website. And if they will use theblindblogger.net/rockstar, they can get a 13-part online audio course that will teach them how to use radio shows and podcasts and other online platforms to share their story, to reach more people, and to build their brand or their passion. Awesome. And that, is a completely free course. And it's from my experiences of having done over 200 podcasts of over 7 years of being a guest. And I honestly believe that having these conversations is the best way that people can get to know me. They can get to know you. They can decide if they like us and want to do business with us. So I hope people will check that out.
I love that. No, thank you for that gift. And I second that. I've been on many, many podcasts myself, and you just never know where people will hear you, see you, and connect with you. And that's, I think, the biggest part of it. So is building that relationship. So I love it. Thank you for that. And I have a final question that I love asking my guests.
Sure.
Is if this was your last interview, no more podcasts, no more stages, no more speaking, what is that final message that you would share with the world?
We cannot do this by ourselves. And most people have too much ego to ask for help or ask for opportunities. So the one thing I would tell them is this: when you refuse to ask, you rob the other person of the joy they would have received from helping you.
That's beautiful. Yes. Love it. Well, thank you, Maxwell. Great to meet you. Thank you for that message. And thank you for just being you. I appreciate you.
Well, it's great to meet you too. I really appreciate the opportunity of being on the podcast. And since I know how much work goes into these, I never like to end the show without telling the host that I know that you aren't doing this for financial gain. You may be doing it out of obligation to help people like me have a platform, or you may just enjoy the whole process. But without people like you, I would not have the opportunity to share my story and hopefully encourage others. So thank you for all that hard work.
I appreciate that. It is, right. And it's a labor of love. So
Yes,
I
it sure
really,
is.
you get it. And I love being able to support people in the world in this way. So thank you for that compliment. All right. We'll talk soon. Everybody listening or watching, as always, let's go get our brave on, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much.